Okay, hello everyone. This is a video designed to just take you through some of the criterion elements for Assessment 2, just to give you a bit of a guide around what's expected and just to frame your write-up of your interview that you conduct or the interview that you analyse that's provided to you. So once again, this assessment requires written and practical components. So it's really important that if you are unable to complete the practical component of this assessment, that is the interview of a practicing teacher, you must definitely email me as soon as possible or as soon as you begin thinking about working on this assessment, and I will provide you a link to my Dropbox with a recording that I conducted with a teaching friend of mine. And this, if you have to take this option, and it is a have to, it's not sort of an option, it's if you can't source an experienced teacher working in a secondary context, if that's just not possible for you, that's okay, then you can use the interview. What it does preclude though, obviously, is you being able to frame any of your own questions, and it doesn't make things more difficult. It's just there are certain elements of the assessment that you just won't be able to demonstrate, and that's fine. If that's your situation, I just will omit some aspects of the rubric around that, because there is a component here about framing your questions that will be assessed, so you just won't be assessed on that. But then there's, in a way, a bit more of a heavy emphasis on doing well in the analysis in regards to how you're marked. So it's just, again, the nature of this diverse group of students that we've got for online learning, and you're all in different contexts, and that's fine. So I'm doing my best to accommodate for everybody in their particular situations, and some people just won't have access to a teacher. But as I said, please ensure you email me and let me know that that's you, and I will provide the link for the interview. So there are a number of aspects that you must consider when looking at this interview and approaching, if you are conducting it. There are the criteria listed here around what information you're trying to gather from your teacher, and you must ensure that you frame questions. It may be one question, it may be two questions that regard or look at each aspect of a teacher's practice. And they do cover much of what we've done in the unit. So the kinds of ethical and legislative responsibilities and requirements teachers have, administrative duties, organizational responsibilities such as planning, learning, assessing, etc., and the use of ICT safely, responsibly, and ethically, and by themselves and students. So that might bring in issues with mobile phone use, etc., which is obviously an important issue that teachers must consider when they actually work with students in the modern classroom. So if you conduct the interview, again, ensuring that you're framing some good questions. If you're wanting some support and help, access the Facebook group, email me if you want to run your questions by me. More than happy to have a look at them and tweak them, or say, yeah, these are great. I think you're going to get some interesting information here. Also ensure that when you do approach conducting the interview, that try not to do it too rigidly. Make it a dialogue, make it a conversation. If there's something interesting that the teacher that you're speaking to mentions, maybe follow that line. Yes, you've got a rough plan of what you're trying to achieve, but ensure that you really get a sense that it's a dialogue, it's a conversation. Also, just from a technical requirement, ensure that you record on your mobile device and check that recording is working. You may even want your laptop and your mobile, just to ensure that there's no error there. Try to keep the interview around 30 to 45 minutes, certainly no more than an hour. An hour is a long time to sit down and talk with somebody, and your person might get a little bit fatigued by the end of it and not answer the questions as in depth as you might like. So have this rough plan in your mind about what you want to achieve in terms of the interview, and all the questions asked, and know that perhaps towards the end you may have to rush the person a little bit in terms of, oh, okay, I'll just stop you there, be polite about it, let's move on to the next question, that sort of thing. And particularly if you know the person, it may be a bit easier in that regard. But if you don't know them, if there's somebody you've just contacted, maybe they're one of your own child's teachers, for example, then again, just make sure that you are acting as an ambassador for Curtin University in this regard. So you act with politeness, with professionalism, etc., which I'm sure you all do. As part of the assessment submission, you're required to submit a copy of the questions, but not required to upload a copy of the interview or transcript. So, certainly don't want anyone to transcribe the interview. It can take a long time to do that. And obviously, if you're just observing the interview, you don't need to submit a copy of the question. So you're precluded from that particular aspect. But as I said, then the analysis section, element 2, and the kind of breaking down of the interview, there's just a little bit more of an emphasis on that. But certainly I would like to see the questions that you've asked, because you'll need to be referring to the select quotes, what questions you asked. You may have some block quotes in your written analysis there that you might provide a block quote, and then your discussion of that response in element 2. So looking at element 2, you need to reference the ATEL standards as well as the research conducted throughout the unit to analyze the responses. So, rather than just saying, oh, this is what the person said, you need to, analysis points to this notion of, well, what does this mean? How does this connect with everything that we've learned in the unit? So thinking about the specific ways the teacher explain their practice. Now, the teacher may not refer to the standards themselves, but your job here is to say, well, okay, how does what the teacher said link to the standards, and which standards, and what did they talk about that the standards also talk about? So you need to make that explicit. Also, there'll undoubtedly be a number of specific elements in the teacher's responses that are not included, that are omitted from the ATEL standards, particular things teachers do, particular things teachers are concerned about, particular aspects of their work that may be quite demanding or challenging, that are simply not covered in the ATEL standards. So you need to refer to that specifically as well. And the specific ways, the current political, cultural, social, historical. So the reason that there's dashes there or slashes is the teacher may refer to or point towards certain aspects but not others. But there's undoubtedly going to be some issues around the cultural notion of teaching, depending on the teacher's particular school context. Some of the political demands maybe around any aspect, whether it be funding or resourcing in the school, whether it be national testing, whether it be maybe some of the social forces around student behaviour, etc. So what was evident in the teachers' responses about what we have been addressing in regards to those macro forces shaping the education sector currently. So once you've done that, you need to write a written report and bring in this kind of macro and micro analysis, looking at those micro aspects of what the teachers do every day, what forms their day-to-day work, what they're concerned about, what requirements they have to meet, what their responsibilities are, and then the macro in terms of those forces that we're learning about in the unit that might shape the way teachers are talking about their work, how the standards have made their way into what teachers do and how they are mapped into teachers' responsibilities, requirements, duties, etc. What is actually, as number 2 here says, what actually goes on with teaching day to day? Is this included in the standards? Is it missing? What don't align? And then using that, particular aspects of those that don't align, create a plan for how you may develop your own knowledge or skills in that area, because the standards support much of your focus professional development in regards to those things that the standards cover, but they're undoubtedly not going to cover everything, and you'll learn that very quickly when you start teaching. So yeah, where can you find those aspects, or where can you source knowledge that will support your learning in some of the things that just simply aren't covered